No?
We could full on throw this in.
Okay, no, I'm not doing it now.
Come on.
We could cut to like downloaded pictures from the internet of Amstler as she explains them.
Sure, we'll just tell us.
All right, I'm gonna blow all my ideas. Dude, I'm so excited about
Don't
this
shake the
now.
table.
You should just make up a
How long
different
is
story.
it?
It's not here.
Yeah. Okay.
So you go to the door.
Oh, it doesn't. That is not where it starts.
No, heck no.
Yeah,
I definitely have to get out if you're gonna record it.
Okay.
Let me out.
It's okay.
Someone drink my drink.
I'll climb over here. I love how the... Oh, I guess it was right.
Take this whole. Just get this.
Well, that's my thing. I need that.
1,500.
No, you can.
Hasn't this happened before, where you eat too much ice cream or something?
Is it the asthma?
This seems like a familiar scenario.
Since when, Ryan? Tell me one time.
On Hawaii?
Tell me the date.
Prove it.
I'm just asking someone else.
Oh, too much cheap.
Okay.
Cheap.
Okay.
It's okay, sister. Okay, please. Can have.
Ready? Okay, camera's on.
On.
It's kind of
Okay.
creepy.
Oh,
So about 7 years ago, I lived in LA, and I lived there for about a year. And I was working at the bank, and right next to it was a mall. And so I was at the bookstore all the time. And this particular time, I was with a couple friends, and we all kind of spread out. And I went to the magazine section, and I found a dance magazine or something like that. And I was reading it, and I got down on the floor like this, sitting on my knees, and I was reading the magazine forever. You know, it could have been 45 minutes or something. And so when I was done, put the magazine down, and I stood up, and I held myself up on the bookshelves. And when I stood all the way up, I realized that my legs were asleep. No, I didn't realize until I started walking. And when I started walking, it looked like this. It looked like this. I grabbed onto the bookshelves, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I started laughing, and I was laughing and shaking, and I was like holding on to the bookshelves, laughing really loud in a bookstore. You know, and so, okay, so when that was done, I walked upstairs and I found my friends, and they're sitting on this bench.
What were you wearing?
And I was wearing overalls. Thank you. I was wearing overalls and
What? Yeah.
I had overalls and I had braids in my hair.
Overalls and
they were,
braids?
like rolled up, and I probably wasn't wearing shoes because I almost never wear shoes. And I'm from Michigan.
Is that supposed to explain what you're wearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was explaining to my friends, I was demonstrating the walk basically, that I had just walked downstairs with all these strangers around me, you know, and I was like, okay, telling my friends, and I was walking the walk, and I was like getting all hot, and I'm in overalls and my braids, and you know, I'm just like, and I noticed this muscly guy over here just kind of watching, and I was like, hey, whatever, you know, and when I was done, I sat down, and I was like, you know, and I'm sitting by my friends, and this dude walks up, and he's like, walks like this, and he's like, hello. I just wanted to tell you, you are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. I was like, oh, thanks. Thanks. You know, and my friend is just kind of elbowing me. I'm like sweating, and he's like, I just wanted to know if I could have your number or I could give you mine. You're very beautiful, and I was like, I am not beautiful right now. I look so stupid. And I was just walking around with wiggly legs. And so I got his number because I love to do stuff that will make a good story for my mom. Because she's kind of at home without us, you know. And so he called me, and he called me like a bunch of times throughout the week. And it was always my sister that answered. My sister was like, hello, no, sorry, you know, and eventually after a week he stopped calling, and then another week goes by without any calls, and then he called again and I answered. I was like, hello? And at this point I'm just fresh out of Michigan, so I have like a bright accent, you know? And
As opposed to a
and
dark
he's
one?
like, you'll hear it. And he's like, is Stephanie there? And I was like, yeah, this is Steph. Hey, Robert. And he's like, can I take you out tomorrow night? And I was like, sure. So tomorrow night I went to, where was it? Santa Barbara? Nope. Santa Monica. And I drove up to his house, which I had the address and everything, and I was going right after work. And I was like, 5 minutes early or something. And so I hit the buzzer thing at the gate, and it's one of those voice things. So I was like, hey, and he's like, hello, and I was like, hi, it's Steph. And he's like, oh, come on in, I'm number 2. And so I walked to number 2, and I knocked on the door, and he opened it, and he was wearing this, like, baby yellow soft towel, and he was glistening wet, like, and he's like, oh, you're early, and I was like, I'm not that early, like you were totally in the bathroom spritzing yourself with water the whole time before I got here.
Just waiting for you to come.
And he's like a buff, he's a bodybuilder dude, like big guy. And so he's like, come on in, I'll go get dressed, and so I sat, he's like, make yourself at home. So I sit down and I look around, and all around his apartment there's fitness equipment, there's like whole gyms, in the corner, and I was like, maybe I should work out while I'm waiting for him, He obviously has a shower that I can use. And so, so he came back out, and he was wearing, I looked at the coffee table, and there were a whole bunch of magazines on it, and on the front of one of the magazines was a picture of him. It was like Men's Health or something. No way. Of course he would keep it on his coffee table. He's like, look at me when he's home alone. And so I was looking at it, and it said that he was Mr. Fitness Universe, like 4-year champion or whatever. And so that was exciting. So he came out, and he was wearing his jeans too high, like light jeans, stonewash, kind of, a little bit too short, and he had like a blue tank top on that was tucked in with a fanny pack.
Oh, he wore a fanny pack?
He did. And he offered me a protein shake, which I think that I took it. I can't really remember. And he was like, so we can go out for dinner and a movie, or we can go to the Miss Fitness America competition. And I was like, Miss Fitness America competition? Like, who wants to go to dinner and a movie? And so we got into his tiny car, and
of course.
we drove south. I think we went to San Diego, and we went to this auditorium that had a big area in front where people had stations of where they were advertising their athletic products, And so people are like, hey, Robert, and he's like, hey, and he's got me on his arm, And people are like pointing, it's just kind of a cheesy community or whatever. And someone's like, hey, Robert, and he's like, oh, Clark, and we like glide over to him, and he's got these energy shots, like Jello shots, energy Jello shots at the table. Like there are like 6 of them all in a row on the table, and there's a big poster behind him that says Clark whatever, as seen on TV kind of thing. And I was like, and Robert introduces me as his future wife to Clark, and I was just like, I don't even know him. And the whole time in the car ride on the way there, he was saying, Stephanie, you are so funny. You are the funniest girl I have ever met in my entire life. You're so beautiful. You have a real body. You're not like these women that I work with. And he's just like going on and on about me the whole time. So then he feels like probably he's built me up enough so that he can introduce me as his future wife. So I was like, oh, Clark, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to meet you. And it's really exciting, not knowing who he is, And, so, so,
Thank you.
so I was just, pretending that I was hamming it up with Clark, not knowing who he was, but kind of being grossed out that Robert introduced me as his future wife. So I was like, Clark, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to meet you, can I have your autograph? And he's like, sure, and he's like, and he gives me this picture that, with a heart on it or whatever. And so I'm carrying the picture, and we're walking into the auditorium, and Robert's like, Stephanie, give me that picture. And I was like, no, it's mine. And he's like, Stephanie, give me that picture. And And I was like, no, Robert, I know you're really strong and everything, but this really isn't that heavy. And he's like, oh, Stephanie, you're making me jealous. I was like, fine, you know. And so we went into the auditorium, and they had those wooden theater seats that you push the seat down in, and they were like kind of like made out of old carpet or whatever, you know. And so they were pretty uncomfortable and small. And we sat down, and the back only went up to like here, you know, or something. And so I was kind of slouching, and he put his arm around me, and my head was like, you know. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna scooch this way, you know, lean against him, or do I lean this way? But then he might think I want to talk more, so maybe I want to lean this way. And he starts to smell my shoulder, and I was just like, you know, he's like, oh my god, you smell like apples. And I did smell like apples. I put apple lotion on like 13 hours before work at 7 in the morning, you know? And then I was like, oh my gosh, Robert, like, I really do smell like apples. That's crazy. And he starts to go like this on my tank top. And he's like, where does this go? And I was like, it goes straight here. And he was like, oh, Stephanie, you are so funny. And so we watched this competition of all these fit dancing women with batons or whatever they had, and it was actually really fun. And on our drive home, he said, are you hungry? Oh, he did offer me a protein bar in the middle of so he asked if I was hungry, and I was like, no, I should actually get home. And he's like, are you sure? We can go out to Arnold Schwarzenegger Club, or we can go to my house. I can make you chicken dinner, or whatever, you know. And I was just like, no, I should actually get home. My sister's waiting for me in Northridge, where I lived, and which was a lie. And so he drove me back to his house, and I had left stuff in there. And so we went in, and I realized right then that I could be putting myself into a really bad spot, you know? Like, I think I'd kissed one person ever, and it was like a year before that, you know? And so this guy is Mr. Fitness Universe, not even world, you know? And you know, any girl would love to be standing there, you know? And so he's, so I tried to kind of milk it a little bit, and I was like, Robert, I know it sounds kind of weird, but can I have your autograph? And he's like, oh, sure, hold on one second. And he like goes in his room, and he comes out with a picture, like a glossy 7x11 or whatever it is, of him, like one of those like tough guy from here up kind of like shots, you know? And he wrote, you are ... wow, and drew little elephants with their trunks smashed together, you know? And then he gave that to me, and I was like, and then he gave me a wallet-sized photo of the same picture. And then he ripped one of the pictures out of the magazines on the coffee table and was like, here you go. So I have 3 items from him, you know, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much, that was amazing, you know, and he's like, well, can I have a hug? And I was like, yeah. And he hugged me, and he's like, a little taller than me, you know, and really buff, so I'm expecting this great man hug, you know, but it was just like one of those wussy, limp-wristed little hugs, and I was like, hug me, you know, and so I was just like kind of grossed out by the hug, so I kind of backed up, but he kept holding onto my waist, and I was like, okay, and he went in for a kiss, and I was like, Robert, there's something I have to tell you, and I covered his kiss, which sucks, but I did, and I was like, Robert, I don't just go around kissing people, you know, I would have to spend quite a lot of time with you in order to consider that, you know, and he's like, oh my god, Stephanie, you know, this is just it's such a surprise, you know, and I was like, sorry, dude, you know, but you can take me out again and we can just kind of see what happens, I guess, you know, but I probably won't kiss you next date either, you know, and he was just like, Stephanie, you do not understand. I come from a very romantic family, and we come from, in Austria, it's a very romantic culture, and I just don't know if I can, I mean, this will be very hard for me, you know, tonight. And I was just like, sorry, dude. You know, and so I walked away from him, and I walked out the door, and I was like, bye, and he was like, well, Stephanie, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. And he said, I don't know if I can go out with you again without being able to kiss you. And I was like, well, you don't have to go out with me again, you know? And so I walked away from him with his pants too high, you know? And he just had like this dumb look on his face or whatever. And he called me one time and I didn't answer. Then he emailed me one time and I didn't respond. And then, months later, my mom calls me screaming. I told her the story and she loved it. And my mom calls me screaming. She's like, oh my gosh, she's on TV. And it was on the Brawny Towel commercial. And he was in this flannel lumberjack, and he's in a kitchen with like a marble countertop, and he's frosting a cake, you know? And he like drips the frosting on the counter and goes, oops. I think I made that up. But he wipes it off the counter, and I imagine if he had said anything, it would be oops. And so he like seductively wipes it off the counter, you know? And then it's the end of the commercial, and he's holding a cake and a puppy, you know, and just a buff lumberjack guy. And so I watched that screaming too. And then we found out later that he was one of the contestants for The Bachelorette, and he was everyone's favorite, and he got to the top, and then he was maybe selected or maybe the second place or something. And he wound up being the Bachelor on the next show.
Hey.
We'll insert the commercial into that video.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That could have been you. No.
At least you know how to say it.
What happened here? Did they just